issue. This is not just happening here. This is a worldwide problem. And I just want our visions to be expanded a bit so we can actually grasp the totality of what this is. Now, according to the Guttmacher Institute, which is, if you look at it, it's not a pro-life, it's not an abolitionist site, this is not a place that's pro-life by any means. You would think a place that's in favor of abortion might be trying to skew their numbers, make it look a little less threatening, right? If we went by their numbers, worldwide, we have roughly 121 million unintended pregnancies happened between 2015 and 2019. Of those, 61% of that much, 61% ended in abortion. That equates to a roughly 73 million abortions per year. If we want to break that down even further, the numbers are alarming. This is worldwide. Now, again, you can look between different places that do research on this subject. I encourage you all, do your homework. You know, I'm just putting out the bread seeds. Do your own homework. Don't trust everything I'm saying just because I am saying it. Do your own homework. We're adults here, all right? That's what I'm trusting all of you to do. If you have the passion for it, look into it, verify, all right? Now, that's an alarming set of numbers right there. And Justin leads us to the next portion. With Planned Parenthood, if you look at their annual report, roughly every 89 seconds, another abortion occurs. This is according to their own, if we're going to their annual report. Again, take into effect, we're talking about a life being lost. That another mother has decided this is what her child is worth. That every single 89 seconds, and it only gets worse by the years. But so what I've talked to Andrew. I'm sorry, Justin. Talked to Justin there. What we're going to do for today is he has a timer set up. So every 3 minutes, just so we're not bombarded too frequently, but every 3 minutes, that bell that you heard there, that is going to signify 2 lives just were lost due to abortion. And we're going to do that throughout the whole presentation today. So, Justin, if you want to kick us off with the initial bell, just to start off the timer. That was 2. Just so every single time, I'm not going to address it anymore, just know when you hear that, another 2 lives were just lost because of what we allowed legally in this country. So in order to address the subject matter at hand, we're going to touch on Planned Parenthood, we're going to touch on a couple of things. We need to go cover history, all right? It's good to know your history. And the problem with history is that it accumulates every single day, right? We're bombarded with a whole bunch of things that are going on in our lives. Keeping up with stuff that's relevant specifically towards you is tough, right? But, you know, statewide, nationwide, worldwide, every single day more events tally up. We want to keep up with relevant events, but the fact is, things that are in fact impacting us now happened long ago. And we need to actually know in context what the history is, what has happened that has led us here. Is anybody familiar with this term? Eugenics. Roughly, I believe it's, under one dictionary, it actually just means good birth. That's its intended literal meaning. It's just a practice of population control, of specifically controlling the outcome of how humans are laid out, how the human race is laid out. All right? Now, there are 2 ways to look at this. We have the implications and we have the intentions. Now, the intentions are always how it's sold, right? Someone wants to sell you something, they're going to sell you on the best of intentions, right? Well, with with eugenics, you have genetic enhancement. Sounds nice, right? You know, hey, I can be stronger, fitter, faster, right? You have treating disease. That sounds nice. We're in the age of COVID, right? We're in the age of a pandemic. Sounds really good, treating a disease. Parents enhancing their children. Well, there's a lot of children dealing with unhealthy issues. If this is all you heard, eugenics sounds pretty good, right? You know what? If this is all I knew about eugenics, guess what? I'd probably want to be a eugenicist. You know what? This sounds great. But is that where it ends? No. Eugenics, the theory behind eugenics has led places, has caused things. Selective breeding programs, horrifying concentration camps, medical experiments, and even worse, mass exterminations. People like the Nazis were eugenicists. Hitler wanted the master race. I don't think we view him too well, do we? No. This brings us to Margaret Sanger. Is anybody familiar with this woman? This right here is the founder of Planned Parenthood. That's why she's relevant for today. In 1916, October, this is when she established the first birth control clinic. She was a big advocate in regards to abortion. Now, in order to gauge the mind of somebody, it's actually appropriate just to look at their writings. You know, if you want to know somebody, just go on their Facebook page, right? Look at what they wrote. You know, social media is almost like our public diaries. People get to know our inner minds and whatnot. Well, back in 1916, they didn't exactly have social media. So there was a lot of more writing. People were big-time readers back then. I encourage you highly to look into the writings, the full writings. We don't have time for it today. You know, I'm trying not to hound Pastor Baker here for an extra 5 minutes at the end. So we have a limited amount of time today. And we're going to just cover some of the writings of Margaret Sanger. Now, from 1919, birth control and racial betterment. Gee, that sounds like a great paper, right? 1921, the eugenic value of birth control propaganda. 1934, America needs a code for babies. Remember, this is all from the mind of the person who founded Planned Parenthood.
That's right.
Birth control and racial betterment. This is just snippets. This is not the entire thing. I encourage you, highly encourage you, go look up, read in its totality all her writings. This is the person who started the organization, Planned Parenthood. Before eugenicists and others who are laboring for racial betterment can succeed, they must first clear the way for birth control. Like advocates of birth control, eugenicists, for instance, are seeking to assist the race towards the elimination of the unfit. Sounds like a wonderful person, right? Eugenicists emphasize the mating of healthy couples for the conscious purpose of producing healthy children, the sterilization of the unfit to prevent their populating the world with their kind. While I personally believe in the sterilization of the feeble-minded, the insane, and syphilitic, I have not been able to discover that these measures are more than superficial deterrents when applied to the constantly growing stream of the unfit. She really likes to deem certain groups unfit. Very nice person here, right? All right. The eugenic value of birth control, propaganda from 1921. Now, realize we're going back 100 years. We're in 2021, 1921. Today, eugenics is suggested by the most diverse minds as the most adequate and thorough avenue to the solution of racial, political, and social problems. I think you must agree that the campaign for birth control is not merely of eugenic value, but practically identical with the final aims of eugenics. As an advocate of birth control, I wish to point out that the unbalance between the birth rate of the unfit and the fit, admittedly the greatest present menace to civilization. On the contrary, the most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the overfertility of the mentally and physically defective. And finally, America needs a code for babies. Now, this is what her thought was for what should be our legal code here. All right? And remember, this is only part of it. If she had her way, this would be the American system right now. Keep this in mind. Article 3, a marriage license shall in itself give husband and wife only the right to a common household, not the right to parenthood. You're married. It doesn't mean you get to be a parent. You need permission from the state. Article 4, no woman shall have the legal right to bear a child, and no man shall have the right to become a father without a permit for parenthood. Article 5, permits for parenthood shall be issued upon application by city, county, state. They must have the qualifications needed for proper rearing of the child. So you need officials to say you have the proper qualifications. If you're going to raise your child in the wrong way, you aren't allowed to be a parent. It's hard to see, the screen's a little up, but article number 6, no permit for parenthood shall be valid for more than one birth. Oh, but honey, we already have one child, you're pregnant. Did you get the paperwork? No? What are we going to do? I mean, what would have to happen if you don't have permission from the government to have your extra child? I think there would be only one solution, right? China itself instituted for quite some time the one-child policy. Right. Guess what? That's what was desired here. And there's also, she headed and started up the Negro Project. That sounds like a great thing, right? Gee, such a wonderful avenue. No, Margaret Sanger was an immense racist. And one of her biggest goals was to eliminate the black community. You can't read it? It seems to me from my experience where I have been in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, that while the colored Negroes have great respect for white doctors, they can get closer to their own members and more or less lay their cards on the table, which means their ignorance, superstitions, and doubts. The minister's work is also important. He should be trained, perhaps by a federation, as to our ideals and the goal that we hope to reach. We do not want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. This is what comes, the implications of eugenics. This thinking, this worldview is what the implications come. Hitler definitely believed that he was of the superior race. I'm under the mindset that we have one race, the human race.
Right.
So people like this disgust me. But this is the founder, the great founder of Planned Parenthood. Does anybody know what this date represents?
Roe v. Wade.
Exactly. Roe v. Wade. And again, today is about the macro version. Today is about the grander view. I could go into depth about Roe v. Wade, but what I want to keep people fixated on is the fact that a lot of people are like, we need to overturn Roe v. Wade. We need to do it. We got to do it today. And I agree with you. But keep this in mind. Overturning Roe v. Wade would not eliminate abortion. It would bring it down to the states. Now, luckily, we have a lot of pro-life abolitionist states that this would be a great thing. It would reduce abortion numbers greatly, but it wouldn't eliminate abortion. It's a step, it's a great step, but we need to keep in mind, this is not a solution. This is not something this is a part of the solution. This is not the solution. So if you hear people say, overturn Roe v. Wade, support it. But at the same time, do not believe that this alone means go. No, this is not end game. If we, God willing, we get to this point. I hope we do. I pray we do. But this is not, in the bigger view of things, this is not the end goal. Now, the reality of Planned Parenthood, as most of us already know, they're a business. We know what their business is. Now, some prime facts that we should be aware of right now in regards to them. They're basically the nation's largest abortion provider. What does that mean? They're not the only one, right? As of the fiscal year 2020, they received roughly $618 million in government funding, taxpayer dollars. Money taken out of your check, my check, everybody that pays taxes is going to them. $618 million over. Between October 1st, 2018 and September 30th, 2019, responsible for over 354,871 abortions. And that was 10,000 more from the prior year. And the biggest thing to address right now is just there's a lie they perpetuate. And this is what helps sell them to people. Brother Tom, if you can please cue the video. We're going to go, this video is from 2016, but it's still relevant. Contains pretty much all up to date. Numbers are a little more high than the video, but it's still relevant information. So.
Imagine there's an organization that claims to stand for one thing. Imagine this organization calls itself a healthcare provider, but it's not involved in preserving life, it's involved in ending it. And imagine that you help finance this organization, whether you want to or not. Well, you don't have to imagine. This organization exists, and it has a name with which you are very familiar. It calls itself Planned Parenthood, and the deception begins right there. Planned Parenthood doesn't help people plan for parenthood, it helps people escape it. And that's only the start of its deception. Planned Parenthood tells you it's one of the nation's leading women's healthcare providers, but it provides very little healthcare. It tells you it provides adoption referrals, but the only adoption advice it is likely to offer is Google it. Most deceptive of all, Planned Parenthood tells you that abortions are a small part of what it does, but it performs more abortions than anyone else in America. Here are the facts. The folks who run Planned Parenthood boast that they provide life-saving cancer screenings. And they do, just not that many of them, less than 2% of the nation's screenings each year. They talk about providing breast exams. They do, but just not that many of them, again, less than 2% of the nation's total. They talk about providing ultrasounds, but the last thing they want to do is show a pregnant woman an image of her growing child. So they don't. The ultrasound is only for Planned Parenthood's use to better facilitate patient abortions. In other words, abortion, not women's health, is Planned Parenthood's reason for being. Every year it does more than a third of all abortions in America, over 321,000 of them. That's equivalent to every inhabitant of St. Louis or Pittsburgh wiped out every year. That's over 880 abortions every day. An abortion every 98 seconds. And while the number of total abortions in the United States is going down, Planned Parenthood's market share of abortions has increased from 23% in 2006 to 34% in 2016. So when Planned Parenthood says it's devoted to women's reproductive rights, what it means is it's devoted to aborting as many babies as possible. And here's the biggest deception of them all. Planned Parenthood would like you to believe that abortion is only 3% of the total services they provide. 3%. Doesn't sound like very much, does it? But here's how they get to that 3%. They count every discrete clinical interaction as its own service. What is a discrete clinical interaction? Pretty much anything you do from the moment you walk into one of their clinics. I'll give you an example. Let's say a woman comes into Planned Parenthood for one service, an abortion. Before providing an abortion, Planned Parenthood has to confirm that the woman is pregnant, right? So they administer another service, a pregnancy test. That's 2 services. Then, after the abortion, on your way out the door, they hand you a prescription. That's 3 services. And there are many other services provided during the abortion process that Planned Parenthood claims as discrete clinical interactions. In this way, Planned Parenthood is able to rack up $9.5 million of these so-called services each year. Divide the number of abortions, 321,000, by 9.5 million, and you get 3%. Even the Washington Post, a Planned Parenthood ally, declared this 3% figure very misleading. Rich Lowry of National Review nicely illustrated this voting statistic. It would be like Major League Baseball saying they sell 20 million hot dogs, but only play 2,430 games, so baseball is only 0.012% of what they do. So why does Planned Parenthood engage in all these deceptions? Well, as they say, follow the money. According to federal law, the United States government is not permitted to spend taxpayer money on abortions, but Planned Parenthood receives over $500 million a year in federal funding, not for abortions, mind you, but for those other discrete clinical interactions. Over the last 10 years, its annual clientele has dropped 23%, almost a quarter. But during this time, its taxpayer funding has skyrocketed from $336 million in 2006 to $543 million in 2016. The reality is, just about everything about Planned Parenthood is a deception. Its purpose, its funding, its very name. That's why Planned Parenthood's biggest enemy isn't conservatives or religious people. Its biggest enemy is truth. I'm Lila Rose, founder and president of Live Action for Prager University.
Do Prager videos help you see the world from a new perspective?
Context is important, right? And we need to keep that in mind. We need to be aware of these things because these are the arguments which they are using to justify their existence. Every service that Planned Parenthood offers besides abortion is offered elsewhere. They are not needed as an organization to pour our money into at all. And besides that, even if it was only 3%, even if that number was accurate, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not justification. We need to keep in mind, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of lives lost solely due to them. We need to keep this in mind. Their existence isn't justified. But again, bigger picture. Someone says, we need to defund Planned Parenthood. I agree. I'm never going to argue with that statement. Not a single taxpayer dollar should ever go to them. But keep in mind, we defund Planned Parenthood, it doesn't eliminate them. They have private donations. They're a private business. They are not going to go away by eliminating government funding. And again, now over 40% of abortions are done through Planned Parenthood. Keep in mind, that's still around 60% done elsewhere, right? You guys know the ABC song, right? Everybody know ABC, right? Well, I kind of looked into it. There are a bunch of places outside of Planned Parenthood. And here's just an alphabetical list. I'm going to go through it quickly because I know we have a limited amount of time. I don't know how we are on time right now, but all right. All right, so we're really close. All right, so just to give you guys an idea, all right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. These are all places. And if I could go back, we don't have the time, but a bunch of them just have women's health. You know, we're talking about doctors' offices. We're talking about basic places. Why is this still a major problem? If we eliminate, say Planned Parenthood was off the map, it's sanctioned into our law. We are accepting this. So if we remove Roe v. Wade, we don't remove the problem of abortion. If we remove Planned Parenthood, government funding or not, we don't remove the problem of abortion. This is a map that just demonstrates how saturated all those places are. If you put them all on a map, look at how saturated the East Coast is. Access to abortion is just rampant. It's crazy. It's throughout our country. This is what we have allowed. The answer to abortion is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. We shouldn't be opting and settling for anything less than abolition. not regulating, not saying, well, this particular type of human being in the womb, we can discriminate and kill. Murder can be sanctioned by our laws under this. You'd have to make a biblical case to me why murder is okay. You have to make a biblical case to me. Use your scripture, use your Bible, and justify to me why murder is okay. This, morally speaking, under objective morality, abolition is the only answer. And short of this, there is no real success. We have minor goals, we have benchmarks we can reach, and unified goals we can come together on. I don't want to go anymore. I think I'm out. But thank you guys very much. Next time I'm up here will be the last Sunday about this, and I greatly appreciate you guys. And once